advocacy section, we have several groups that are working on various projects which you may wish to get involved in, whether it's human trafficking, or we have a group working on payday lending. Those are two examples. And you can contact either me or Jen Bernstein if you're interested in learning more about our working groups. NCJW also takes out ads in the Jewish Light to educate our community and legislators about critical legislative challenges on issues central to NCJW's mission. This is our A-list. If you wish to add your voice and support our A-list, you can make a donation for as little as $18 to have your name added to our list of supporters. Again, this is very important, especially when we have legislators read this, for them to see what their constituencies care about. And if you don't already receive our weekly Monday mailings of 5 ways to advocate and would like to receive it, you can contact Jen Bernstein. That's J Bernstein at NCJWSTL.org. This newsletter provides up-to-date action steps that you can take, usually from your home, as an advocate. 2 more items for something that's a little more fun and relaxing. Our membership committee has 2 events. One is a coffee talk coming up on December 22nd at 8:30 in the morning. And Diane Katzman and Madison Marks will be the guest speakers. And on January 16, the group is going to have a relaxation and mindfulness session. There will be a therapist, yoga instructor, and a way to relax with a special coloring book. And I think we're gonna all kind of need that as January rolls around. So what I'd like to do is introduce our speakers, and I'm gonna pause for a moment because I need to help Lovely get into this link. So I need to just send her a piece of information here, and then I will start my introductions. Okay, thank you for giving me a moment here. So we're really excited to welcome our early childhood education experts, Lovely Snowden and Elisa Zieg, to discuss the early childhood landscape in St. Louis, what some of our regional initiatives are, how we support children with special needs, and importantly, how we can become a catalyst to changing the system for the better. With 40 years of working with children and families, Lovely is currently a youth services consultant at the South City YMCA. She has worked at Southside Early Childhood Center, Child Daycare Association, United for Children, Mimes Daycare, Transitional Hope House, Linton Charter School, and Bethesda Hospital Daycare. She currently volunteers with a remarkable group of individuals through the Child Care Entrepreneurship Partnership, a part of the nonprofit Link St. Louis in the Hyde Park neighborhood. Currently, Elisa serves as the program officer for United for Children. In her work with this organization, she has specialized in the areas of social and emotional development of children with special needs and challenging behaviors. She now uses her energy and passion to support early care and ensure that education programs receive the tools they need to offer quality to all children all the time. Elisa, can you begin by giving us some background to the early childhood landscape in St. Louis?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. Thank you all for having me today, and I hope to bring some new information to you and catch you up on some things you may have known about already. So one of the big things that is happening in St. Louis that is getting lots and lots of traction is a very strong focus on collaboration. We have really been shifting the way early childhood service providers and actual care providers are working together so that we are listening to our client's voice more, we're listening to family voice more, and being able to navigate services and offer services that meet children's needs. Because of this focus and because of this work that you've seen through amazing organizations like We Power, Ready by Five, we are moving into a new space within the St. Louis early childhood region for support and collaboration with multiple agencies. And so what does this mean? What does this look like? So out of some of these initial conversations, a lot of landscape analysis, we've identified that we need a regional collaboration system of folks working together that come from a variety of backgrounds to help assess what duplicative services are happening currently in St. Louis, what gaps there are in the services that are offered, and what innovative solutions can we offer to families that are struggling to find childcare that meets their unique needs. This regional collaboration system is something that was elevated through all of this research. And as of right now, we have a current chair for this work and some co-chairs. And the chair for this work, her name is Rose Anderson Rice. And actually, Lovely and I both have had the pleasure and privilege of working with her. And we're really working to gain some momentum and speed within this system, within this network, for organizations to come together and communicate about what we can offer and how can we partner better. And this is huge because in the past, many initiatives that kind of looked similar to this were not able to fully fly the way that we really wanted them to due to a variety of things. But a lot of that really stemmed around this idea of competing for similar resources. And I'm very thankful to say that with the movement and the energy and the passion that all of us are bringing to the tables, both in this regional collaboration system and a couple of the other ones I'm going to mention, all of this is really helping us to be able to take that passion and really make execution happen. We keep hearing this term called operationalized, but what that really means is how can we continue the conversation and at the same time make movement happen, make the opportunities for children and families better in our region. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about some of those challenges that our children and families are facing. A couple of the other highlights of the St. Louis landscape with early childhood that I want to mention is there at the state level, there is funding through what's called the Preschool Development Grant. And one of the priority areas within that is to create regional hubs for early childhood that connects families and schools and service providers to support families more holistically. United for Children had the opportunity to host an information session for several service providers in the St. Louis region just a couple of weeks ago to discuss this preschool development hub that DESE is wanting to introduce into the St. Louis region. And again, this conversation comes out of this desire for collaboration, because we know that working together is the only way we are going to be able to customize solutions to meet children and families where they are. So through this work, there are conversations about how to connect this hub model, which is hub is really just a thought, a system to coordinate services, but that aligns really well with our regional collaboration solutions that we've already elevated and lifted up and are working towards. So what we're really looking at with across organizations is how can all of our strategic plans work together instead of against one another? And again, all of this movement is just really helping us solidify partnerships and collaboration that have to happen. One of the other pieces I wanted to mention in this section is some of the work that United Way and a couple of other regional funding entities have been really working towards. It is important for us to know that the things that we're offering families truly meets their needs. And the only way to know that is collecting data and being able to track and see how the needle is moving on a variety of issues. So at United Way and some of these other organizations, we're working to develop ways to combine all of our data together so that we're able to see, again, if things are working, and if they're not, how can we problem solve to make them better? And what's centered at that let's make this better conversation, similar to the book work that you all are doing around racial equity, is the concept of equity and listening to the children and the families and the childcare providers. It is crucial to have their voice, to trust their voice, and to walk away with solutions that they are confident will support them. And so all of this collaboration and connection makes me and many others extremely hopeful for where we're headed for early childhood. We know that the system as it sits right now is broken. We know that there are challenges with it due to the cost of care being so high for so many families, the cost to implement quality care being so high, and also recognizing that when we have high quality educators in our childcare programs, our school districts will steal those teachers away. And so we want to make sure that we have a beautiful, sustainable system to have amazing educators supporting our wonderful kiddos to then be able to move into schools, whatever that looks like, at public schools, private schools, whatever that may be. And so this hope of all of us working together leaves me with a bright spot of just thinking about, we've come this far already. Think of where we're going to be at the end of all of this time in 2021. We continually say to one another that we are going to have to stay at this table even when it gets hard. And that commitment is beautiful. And so I look forward to being able to share further about what all this collaboration is going to do for the system as a whole in 2021. When we're thinking about landscape for childcare in St. Louis, some of the other crucial pieces to consider is how has COVID impacted this? We know some of the challenges just in general with our early childhood systems of, again, lack of quality. We have childcare deserts, which means there's not even a childcare center to support the children within our own communities. There's not enough spots for them to go. We know that our families have challenges being able to get their children to and from childcare. We also know that quality isn't consistent in every single building. And so those are pieces that we know already exist. Those are issues we're already working towards making better. But how has COVID impacted this? That is another piece that was really impacting this landscape. When we're thinking of COVID and the things that it has done to the early care and education system, the biggest thing that has been happening is that we already have childcare deserts, remember. We have even less spots for kiddos. Because of some of the restrictions with COVID, a childcare program who previously was able to serve 100 children is now only able to serve 75 to 80 or less. Additionally, the educators that are working with these children are having to do additional work and stay with the children, and they're not able to have the breaks that they previously would be able to have. Unless there's another educator in the classroom with them, because children are supposed to stay in the same groups. So what does that look like? It reduces the number of spots for children. Additionally, this also creates a higher cost to provide care. So paying teachers extra for this overtime,
Hi.
paying for
So,
paying for the extra supplies to be able to support
okay.
the children and the families. To
Felice, you need to unmute. You need to mute Felice.
Sorry.
To pay for the children and families to stay safe and healthy, that all increases the cost. So what do we do when a childcare program that is already struggling financially reduces the number of children they can serve, which reduces their income, plus their costs have increased? Our childcare programs are struggling significantly financially. At the start of the pandemic and throughout, national averages have predicted that 50% of our childcare programs are going to be closed by the end of the pandemic due to the fact of not having enough funds to be able to stay open. So what does that mean in St. Louis? We already don't have enough spots, and then COVID is just increasing that reality. We thankfully have been able to infuse into the community some additional funds to provide supplies. United for Children has partnered with leadership childcare programs across the city in COVID hotspot areas to be able to host community hubs that offer free supplies to the childcare programs to reduce that cost burden on them. We're also, with the initiatives related to the coronavirus, we've been able to provide extra food for the childcare programs, and we've been able to provide extra PPE to the childcare programs, the personal protective equipment, cleaning supplies, you name it. We have received so much love and support to get tangible materials that they need to give to these programs, which means some of the relief funding that has come down through the state has been able to go directly towards staff salaries, has been able to go to pay bills, light bills, things like that, for our childcare programs. Is this enough? Absolutely not. But it is the community coming together and working out ways to support programs with the needs that they do have. So COVID has put some very specific challenges on these childcare programs. And right now, we have seen a lot of our childcare programs close, but we also have been able to not have the 50% closure that we had originally thought. Right now, we're at about 75 to 80% of childcares in our state having reopened. So some folks have not been able to reopen. Some have chosen to close, but we are seeing a little bit better of a prediction statewide, but the pandemic isn't over. And so we're going to continue to see some of these pieces impact our childcare programs. the next piece that I wanted to mention that really was highlighted because of COVID works out to really communicate the need of our children with special needs and challenging behaviors. As Felice mentioned, that is a primary area of mine that I am interested in and also want to support. So I'm very passionate about this area. But the reality is that this pandemic has created some significant challenges for children. Children that already had special needs or challenging behaviors are experiencing increased anxiety. They're experiencing increased depression. They're experiencing increased turmoil, even if that means that their family may have lost their job. Maybe they had to move in with a relative. All of these things all of the impacts of the coronavirus on our families, these negative impacts, they impact our children. They impact our little humans. And this means that those behaviors that were already challenging, the needs that were already high for many of our children, it's just gone through the roof of the heightened sense of need, the elevated supports that these little people really have. And because of all of this, our children with special needs we have seen that there have not been as many safe, secure supports for them because our school districts many of our school districts, are not able to be in person. And so the children that would normally be supported by a special educator, they're trying to do their schooling at a childcare program. And because of all of this, the childcare programs are needing to learn and gain new skills because they didn't previously support children in the actual learning process for K through 12 age. They supported our early childhood little ones, but not our older ones. So what we're seeing now is that our childcare programs are able to transition, they're able to be resilient, and they're able to support our kiddos that are in their care settings. And because of this, we have been able to partner with county funding opportunities, city funding opportunities, all to provide special supports for our early care providers around inclusion, around how to include children with challenging behaviors, around how to support children in the out of school time setting when that child may also have autism or may also have cerebral palsy. And so because of this extra funding, we've been able to provide some more significant supports for these childcare programs. And one of the reasons why this is so critical is that we already addressed that there's a lack of spots for all the kiddos that need care in the St. Louis region. Plus, we recognize that there's not funding to go across to every single childcare program. So then when we have our little ones that have special needs or challenging behaviors, what then happens is if I'm a child care director, I know that I have to reduce the number of children that I can serve. If I have a child that has special needs or challenging behaviors that may require additional staff, that child may be one that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to support because I already have reduced funding. I already have increased costs. So the slots available for these children are being reduced. And this is for our children in early childhood and also our children that are aged 5 to 12. So with supports from outside organizations, we're able to go in and help communicate how to still include these children, how to still give them the supports that they need. And so much of the technical assistance and the coaching that we're able to offer is to be able to support these children so they have somewhere to go. Their moms and their dads and their grandmas and their aunts and uncles still need to be able to go to work. They still need to be able to meet their needs. And that child needs a safe, loving place. And so that has been a key element that has come from COVID. And some of the conversations now is we're exploring opportunities for crisis intervention for children that are that have special needs and challenging behaviors and are being considered to be removed from a program due to the fact that the school needs some very intentional supports. So we're building this crisis management plan so that these schools can be supported and these children have that safe, loving space to be. I'm going to check my notes really quickly to see the next area that we wanted to talk about. And Jen, if you could either just shoot me in the chat or say out loud about how much longer we have. I don't want to go over, and I have some key things that I want to mention.
We've got about 15, we've got about 15 more minutes for you, okay. And then we'll have the last 15 minutes be questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure to mention to everybody is with some of the work that Lovely is doing in Hyde Park specifically, there is work similar to what she is doing in a variety of smaller neighborhoods within the St. Louis region. And what I really want to mention about that is this idea of listening to our clients and our families, listening to their voice is so important because families that live in the Hyde Park neighborhood versus families that live in North City, their needs are extremely different. And we have a variety of neighborhood focus groups similar to what Lovely is doing in Hyde Park that are assessing needs within these specific communities, College Park, Hyde Park, a variety of areas of St. Louis. We all know that our families and our children have a variety of needs, and these place-based and neighborhood-specific partnerships are critical to know that we are being culturally relevant to families. And what's beautiful about these individual programs that are embedding themselves into these neighborhoods is that the information shared is being connected and then also communicated to the regional collaboration networks that we're providing. It's these pieces that are also connecting to the regional hub models that Desi's wanting to bring to St. Louis. All of these pieces are working together, and we're trying to be very diligent to be very culturally reflective and relevant to the individual communities. And there's many reasons for this, and some of it comes down to making sure that information that's distributed is in correct language, being sure that the way that things are presented is done so at an appropriate reading level for the families in particular communities. And all of these pieces are so huge and a great way for folks to get involved, because if you have a particular area of the city that you're passionate about, or that you want to make a bigger splash, sometimes focusing in on these special neighborhood programs is a great way to do more because it's a little bit smaller, but yet it connects back to those bigger regional efforts that we're really trying to embed across St. Louis. And that I think is a really critical piece. And I know that Lovely would be happy to share more about it if she was able to be here, and I can make sure that we can connect with her if you have questions about those specifically that she has been doing. So I want to spend my last few minutes just on looking at some action items of you being able to get involved in regard to early childhood. We have lots of options. So you can look at those place-based or neighborhood-specific opportunities to support childcare, to support early care and education. A couple of other things that I want you to be aware of, and this kind of goes to the state level, but it also impacts us here in our region. The state of Missouri has a new Office for Early Childhood. This funding comes from federal government to the state and is currently being held in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, excuse me. This office is looking to coordinate the entire state of Missouri early care and education system and have it connect more strongly with DESE, with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So there are a lot of conversations and calls at the state level that look at region-specific and also statewide initiatives that are supporting our children. One of the big pieces with this is I have a list of websites that I'm going to share with Felicia and Jen, and so they can share out with all of you. But the state has a new Early Connections website specific to early childhood education. And I'd love for you to check it out. There's some really great things and more information on some of the things that I mentioned there. But you'll also see that there is a specific tab for the Coordinating Board of Early Childhood. This is the governor-created committee of folks to look at early childhood initiatives. But the catch there is there has not been new membership, which has to come from the governor. There has not been new folks placed on that committee in several years. And so the committee, people are falling away. The committee is becoming very sparse. There's only a few designated members. So what does that mean? That means if you can talk to your legislators, if you can talk to your community members to lift up the need that coordinating board needs focus, we need to get more folks on there so that the individual committees that come from it, the work that happens at that level can actually occur. If there's no one to do it, we can't move forward. I really want you to first learn about the Coordinating Board for Early Childhood, see how you may want to join on calls and listen to what's going on, then advocate that we move forward, we get new folks on that committee. At the state level as well, I wanted to mention Kids Win Missouri, and that's another website that I have for you all. And Kids Win Missouri looks at a variety of issues for children across the state, but specifically early childhood. And if you join their mailing list, you can get action alerts and updates on everything happening at the legislative level. It's a great way to kind of have an overarching idea of what's going on. And I know that advocacy is so important to everyone here. And so I want to provide you with some resources on how you can do that, to stay involved and also follow the action alerts that they send. And that will encourage you to connect with your legislator or whoever else they suggest for you to be able to advocate for our children and families right here. The other thing I wanted to mention is that regional collaboration work that we're doing is, and I have the website for that too that I'm going to share, but that work is being done as a steering committee. So there's a group of people from a variety of backgrounds that's on this committee that is leading the movement in St. Louis for early childhood education. So you have the opportunity to be on something like that if you are so interested, but you also can be an amazing advocate and tell somebody about it. Share that website that I'm going to be giving you so that you can talk to folks about what's going on. And what's
Hey
really
guys.
great. Yay! Hi, Lovely. So glad you're here. So I'll get you that website and share and invite folks so they can invest their time, talent, and treasure in just the educational world that's happening with our little ones right here. And I'll be quiet and let Lovely share for as long as we still have, and then we can do questions. I'm so glad you're here, Lovely.
And I was trying to get the video to start, Lovely, if you are able to press that. There you are. And you're still muted.
Unmute.
Okay,
Can you
there
hear me
go.
now? Hi guys. I feel like my hair is all messed up. I'm so frustrated. Okay, but I'm glad I'm in. Can you still hear me? Okay. I have been in the business for a long time, and childcare has always been troubling, and we've never had the kind of childcare that we wanted to have. But since the pandemic has hit, it has really put childcare in the limelight because of what's going on with families and children. I've seen children from the babies to 12, and I have worked with those families, and it's very difficult. Families are not being allowed to go into programs, so there's this disconnect between the providers and the families and the children and where they're having their space, because you're not wanting as many people in your building. Children are so glad to be back in spaces and see their friends. It's almost tearful to see them because they don't want to leave their friends. It's not like they don't want to go home. It's that they're so glad to be social again. And the work that I'm doing in North City, there's such a desert for childcare in the north part of the city. It always has been. And those families, primarily women, 40% to 60%, maybe even more are women, are under, they're not, their employment is those blue collar, pink collar type workers. And so they need those off hour care, and they need care that they can afford. When I did the Y care, it was $200 a week. That's a lot of money. Most people cannot afford that kind of care. And when you're talking folks that are working at Walmart, people that are working at Walgreens, they cannot afford that kind of care and that kind of money to pay for care. So it disturbs me when we say that there's childcare for everyone. There's never been childcare for everyone. And especially during a pandemic when the childcare providers can only operate at 25%. Did you talk to them about the 25% of capacity that childcare providers have to have, Alicia?
I mentioned that it's less capacity. I didn't give it the exact number. So thanks
Okay.
for mentioning it.
Yeah, it's 25% right now. We thought it was going to go to 50%, but the pandemic numbers went up again. So it went down to 25%. And right now, DSS is paying for those children that were in care before the pandemic hit. But in a couple of weeks, that money will run out. and they'll only be paying for the children that they have in care. That's going to shut down more providers, and those will be the providers in places like Hyde Park, and other places in North City, other places in the near South Side that will be shut down. Those places that don't have other funding other than DSS subsidy and the money that parents are paying. So that is very troublesome. And that means people like your school bus drivers and your folks at Walmart, and those people will not be able to get to work. The other thing that is happening is that the less money that providers have, the more they're being asked to do. You know, they're providing wipes, they're providing masks, because believe me, children don't always come in with the masks that they need. There's always something that they're adding to what they have to do, and they are not receiving what they should receive in payment. And many owners of child care programs don't even give their own self a salary so that they can pay their workers and they can do the work that they need to done. I think as a society, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves that we've got people working for less than what my own granddaughter is making for working at the zoo. She's making almost $12 an hour for working at the zoo. These providers are not making that kind of money for caring for our children, and we ought to be ashamed of ourselves as a society. What also bothers me with this, and I can go on and on and on, is that we're steady talking about quality. Well, you can't build quality in programs without money. And that definitely is going on in North City. Those moms and those providers want a warm place for their children to be, a nice hug. And even, I'm going to tell you, at the many programs that I'm at now, the Y on Sublet, and the program that I'm in the west side of the city, we don't even hug anymore. We do a side hug because of the pandemic. We don't want to do a lot of touching and hugging, and that's a real sadness that this pandemic has brought about. Kids are even saying 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. So I am so sorry I didn't have the time that I wanted to speak to you about what was going on. But Elisa, I'm so glad that you were able to wave the flag and do that for me. I know that we have questions now that are being posed.
Hi, all. Does anyone have any questions? You can either raise your hand and I can enable you to talk, or you could type it in the chat or in the question and answer box.
I actually have a question, if I can begin, and that is, can you give me a time frame that you think it will take for these regional hubs? I love this idea of regional hubs, for them to kind of like get started and get underway. You know, can we do that even without having that board, the coordinating board of early childhood education?
Yeah, those are great questions, Felice. So there are some areas of the state that already have the hub model, but they're rural. The state has been focusing on rural areas, which is discouraging for those of us here in St. Louis, which is why we're trying to partner with as many folks as possible. And Lovely, like I said, Lovely and I were on a call last week to try to push it into St. Louis as quickly as possible, since it aligns with some of the other regional work happening. We do know that there will be decisions coming from the state early January about the leadership of those hubs in the St. Louis area. And then that work will then allow us to do the next steps of, there's a checklist that we have to complete, and it gives us kind of a model of where to go. Thankfully, because of the great work that's happening, those checklists and those things will be able to happen more quickly, and St. Louis will be able to set this up faster than some of the rural areas that we're starting from scratch completely. But all that means that the leadership model will be early 2021, and then it will be organizations working together. And we know that that collaboration takes a while. So I'd be looking at, I would estimate fall 2021 for having it really up and going. And then, so the coordinating board for early childhood does look at some of the initiatives like this, but they also are responsible for other pieces as well. And thankfully, the specific hub model is the leadership at the state level for that particular piece is in a different department. And so it's not volunteer from the folks that were nominated by the governor, but it is paid. So it's moving forward right now. And then Lovely, we had a question in the chat that I think you would answer beautifully. It says from Mariel, what are some typical quality metrics used in early childhood care?
There has always been a fight about what those metrics would be. So you can go online and find different metrics for what's quality. We used to use the Eckerts as a quality measurement for the environment. There have been other measurements for quality. ASQ, is that one of the ones that they're using too? So there's different metrics for what's quality. I always like to use developmental milestones and measure children with what's going on with that, as well as I like using a little bit from everything and seeing what I come up with so I can individualize that for the program that I am dealing with.
So the other question that we have in the chat is there a concerted push for professional development classes and standards for early childhood educators? So at the state level, there are specific core competencies that early childhood educators must earn. And it's 12 hours right now, correct, Lovely? 12 hours a year?
And
12 hours?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely 12 hours a year. There's even hours for the registered vendors now that they have to have in order to get state assistance for being a child care provider, which I think is a really good big jump for Missouri because we never had any standards for those mom and pop facilities.
Absolutely. That's a very good thing to mention. So there are specific standards in the state. What some of the work that's being done at the state level that's happening with this new Office of Early Childhood is looking to make alignment across the early childhood field and also looking at school districts to have stronger professional development across the state, and that we would be looking at using the same, there's online calendars and online tools for early childhood educators to earn these credentials and log their hours. We would be looking at something similar in both settings, and that's something that's being discussed currently at the state level. Locally, we have a partnership with the St. Louis Child Care Co-op that we're looking at how to build the pipeline of early childhood educators that have their teaching credentials, because that opens up funding for some child cares. So there's a variety of innovative models that we're currently looking at around professional development and education standards. And we're really excited about them. And we're working here with Kansas City to see what we can come up with.
And Alicia, I'm excited about that too. But when you're talking about the small mom and pop facilities, you're looking at a different standard and a different you're looking at different things that are happening for what goes on in those small facilities. Those women work 24 hours a day, and generally they're not those, when they go to school, they're not being rewarded for the work that they're doing. So to ask someone that has 10 children to have the same credentialing as someone that's working in the school district is, I've got an issue with that. Not saying children don't need quality everywhere, but how that quality is measured in a family home and a small childcare program, to me, is a little bit different, because they're putting kids to bed, they're reading them their bedtime story, they're giving them dinner. Those kind of milestones are not put on those quality standards when you're looking at what the state is looking for. And to me, those are qualities that I would want as a parent, as I would want as a grandparent. So I don't know how we merge that and make that work for those folks.
Absolutely. You're so right, Lovely. It has to all be connected.
Yes, it's not one, if one or the other, it needs to be. And that what worries me about the school district, large centers and small centers that are in Hyde Park, that we all want good things for children and we're all fighting over the same dollar. But so it leaves families and children not being able to have what they need.
It looks like we've got time for one more question. This one is from Pam. Her question is, how do neighborhood place-based projects like Hyde Park connect with the other place-based work? We must keep the licensed childcare open first before we begin the hard work of improving quality.
Say that again.
Basically, her question is, how do neighborhood place-based projects like Hyde Park connect with the other versions of those centers in other areas in town?
We haven't done it well. We have, it's so in St. Louis and probably in other places too, that you have school district childcare and everybody thinks that's the greatest. Then we have the private childcare, and then we have small places in Hyde Park that aren't given the status that they need for helping working moms and dads. Yeah, so that's my take on it. Alicia, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, I definitely think that we can improve on all of these connections. And I think that's why the regional collaboration networks are so important. But it makes it hard when it takes time to be in both places, right? To represent in Hyde Park plus be on this other committee. And so how can we streamline that so that people aren't having to give way, way too much of themselves, which is what tends to happen over and over again. But it definitely needs to be improved so that we can see what works, what's innovative, and can work in this other area potentially and get ideas from each other.
And Alicia, one of the things I've noticed from going from the Y and working with youth in the Y to going to working with youth and the west part of the city that's not as that's more economically challenges, these kids are still need the same thing. And I'm going to tell you that I see some good readers and some good chess players, and as well in the Y and as well as in North City. So that's the other thing that we can say is like when it comes down to it, is that both places, if you can go, I think the people that are making choices for childcare need to go into Hyde Park. They need to go into the west part of the city and even places in South City to see what is that community look like, because we do have to look at how the community wants to see their childcare. It's not just about what our standards are, it's about what people want for their community.
Yes, we have to elevate that community voice. It has to happen.
And it is so important. Ladies, thank you for really introducing us to the complexity of this issue, that it isn't just a one-sided approach, but that it is so particularistic to different families, that's a big word, and neighborhoods. And that's what we have to both take work together and collaborate, and then still raise up the voices of individuals, because it all comes down to the personal family. I want to thank you so much. There is so much work to be done in this issue, and I'm just really glad that you have brought this to our listeners so we could begin to learn more about this.
Thank you, Felice.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for coming today. I am going to be sending out email in a little bit with the website that Elisa was kind enough to send to me about some of the organizations where you can get involved in this work. And then also an evaluation, if you could all fill that out, we would really appreciate it. It helps keep our lunch and learns the best that they can be. And thank you, Lovely and Elisa, again. Look for in your emails for a little token of appreciation from us that we will be to. And everyone, for those who are celebrating Hanukkah, we hope you're having a wonderful holiday. And tonight's the last night, so have a happy last night. And for those who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. And we will see you next month.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.